विज्ञान भवन में ड्रीम्स मीट डिलीवरी पुस्तक का विमोचन। चलिए आपको दिखाते सीधे लाइव तस्वीरें।
Had a tenure of 20 years, maybe less or slightly more. But in a democratic country like India, with such vast diversity, language, regions, culture, to be in a democratically elected leader for 20 continuous years, winning election after election, is a unique thing. India's uniqueness is also highlighted by the fact that we are a very, very youthful nation. We have the culture and the historical and the civilizational tradition of debates, discussions. It is rarely an idea that finds relevance for a significant period of time, and yet for 20 years, the idea of Modi, or should I say, the ideas by Modi, have held the nation in thrall. So this is a very, very special occasion, especially that this is happening in a democratic country like India, which is not an authoritarian state, which is not a controlled democracy, but a free democracy with judiciary, free media, and therefore this 20 years is important. Now, there are some obvious, visible, tangible markers through which we can measure these 20 years. The first, obviously, is that the Prime Minister has won every election on which he has been on a ticket. He has never been defeated. Be it 3 times as Chief Minister of Gujarat winning elections, or twice winning the prime ministerial candidate. And what is more significant is this, that his popularity never wins. He wins the next election with a greater majority. And in a country like India, where every 6 months there is some election from parliament to municipality, and incidentally, Prime Minister himself becomes a factor even in a municipal election, this popularity is tested election after election after election, and yet for 20 continuous years running, Mr. Modi has led the thought, the process, the vision for the country for the last 20 years, 2.5 years as Chief Minister, 7.5 years, this month it will become 8 years as Prime Minister. So these are some of the obvious, tangible things that you can measure this. There is one more which we have highlighted in this book. Prime Minister is the first Prime Minister Modi is the first Prime Minister to be elected in office through public acclaim. Now, what do I mean by this? That before Mr. Modi, every other Prime Minister was either nominated in the post for the first time, later they may have gone and won majorities, or if they were nominated before the election, they did not get complete majority. Mr. Modi is the only Prime Minister who was nominated before the Prime Minister election and won absolute majority on his own. This is a unique achievement. No other Prime Minister has this achievement. So these are some of the tangible through which we can measure these 20 years. But what are the intangibles? The way the culture has changed. So I will list out just 3-4 because of paucity of time. One, and we have seen this recently also, that as a country, as a people, we are no longer satisfied with mere participation certificate. If we participate, now we want a position on the podium. So that is a great mindset change that he has brought. Second, we are no longer satisfied with the second best. If something is happening in the world, we want India to have the same achievement at the same time. If the world has a COVID vaccine developed, then we want a vaccine at the same time as anybody else in the world gets, and we do it. Third mindset change that he has been able to brought, and which one of our authors has written in this book, is the mindset change of we are now undaunted by any challenge whatsoever. If there is a challenge, we say we will face it. Hoga kaise nahi? How will this not happen? And we then make it happen. A very recent example is the evacuation that we did out in the war between in Ukraine and Russia. Fourth is, and this is again something which Prime Minister's is his own unique ability, that normally one would think that a politician is not necessarily trusted when there is a crisis. Mr. Modi has turned this wisdom upside down. If there is a crisis, the person we trust first is Mr. Modi. कि अगर ये है तो हो जाएगा. Fifth, obviously, is the culture that he has brought, which is of Jan Bhagidari, public participation, participative governance. So there is a participation in making policy between the government, elected representatives, and the people of the country. Sixth is that now there is no dichotomy between our civilizational and cultural heritage and our modern impulses. Mr. Modi has shown that both can seamlessly fuse together. and coexist, and we can emerge as a modern nation while being proud of our cultural and civilizational heritage. And finally, there is a significant amount of policy impact that I don't need to list out here. Now, given all this, the tangible achievements, the intangible achievements, it would be impossible for one person, one organization to summarize this in a book. Nobody, how much well-versed that person may be, would be able to summarize this one book format. And that is why we came up with the idea that we will request eminent people who are experts in their own domain to then discuss the Prime Minister's work in these last 20 years and put it in a book format so that it can be a reference material for future generations. So this book that is being released today, it has 5 sections, 21 chapters, and there are 22 eminent authors. One chapter has been co-written by 2 other people. So 21 chapters. These 5 sections are, the first section is the social impact. We call it people first. So what is the social impact of Prime Minister? This is in with respect to youth, with respect to women, how to eradicate and completely eliminate poverty. Second section is the political and the cultural impact. The way electioneering has been completely changed in India, how politics have become people first, and the cultural impact. The third section is the economic section, which talks about the economic reforms, last mile delivery, delivering at speed and scale. Fourth section is the governance model. This has 8 chapters. This is the longest section, and it takes us through the various facets of Prime Minister's governance, be it crisis management, be it Jan Bhagidari, be it use of technology in governance, and so on. And the final chapter is India's engagement with the world, which includes our foreign policy, our defense policy, and our relations and how we manage our diaspora. So these are the 5 sections, and now I don't want to take your time. The best people to talk about these sections is the authors themselves, so we will listen to the authors. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
धन्यवाद अखिलेश जी। अब बारी है इस पुस्तक के बारे में एक ऑडियो विजुअल प्रस्तुतिकरण की। इस प्रस्तुतिकरण के माध्यम से हम सुनते हैं उन महानुभावों के कुछ विचार जिन्होंने इस पुस्तक में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के व्यक्तित्व और उनके कार्यों से संबंधित अपने अनुभव को कलमबद्ध किया है।
मैं नरेंद्र दामोदर दास मोदी ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूं कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा।
Leader, statesman, visionary. In a journey spanning 20 years, Shri Narendra Modi has played many roles. As a 3-time Chief Minister of Gujarat, he led the state's transformation from relative underdevelopment to one of India's most prosperous and fastest growing states.
मैं मॉडर्नाइजेशन का पक्षकार हूं, लेकिन मॉडर्नाइजेशन विदाउट वेस्टर्नाइजेशन।
As a 2-term Prime Minister, he continues to unshackle India with far-reaching socio-economic reforms that has empowered 1.3 billion Indians in more ways than ever before. As a statesman, he's amongst a select few world leaders to simultaneously win the respect of nations that oppose each other. Modi at 20, dreams meet delivery, brings together intellectuals, policymakers, industry leaders, and experts across varied fields to chronicle the shaping of new India that is both in tune with its civilizational moorings as well as modern in outlook and achievements. Modi at 20 offers a holistic